Hey, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Twilika and I am from Namibia, currently in the US. Have been gone from this channel for a while, but I am back now and we'll give you guys an update in the next video I'm gonna upload this month. Just give you guys a little bit of a life update. So today I'm going to talk about the Fulbright scholarship application because I am a 2021-2023 Fulbright scholarship recipient from Namibia, and I'm currently in the US. Did my master's degree in public affairs, public policy here in Missouri, Columbia, and then I graduated in May this year. And the Fulbright scholarship application is currently open in Namibia, closing at the end of June, 30th of June. And I thought about making a video because a lot of people have been reaching out and really asking questions. So I hope, I answer or I enlighten a lot of you just on the whole applications, what you need to do and what you shouldn't do. So if you see me looking down, I have my notes down just so that I don't miss out important points. First things first, personal statement. So when you talk about this personal statement, sometimes it's very difficult to determine what you need to speak about in the personal statement, because sometimes it looks like what you are going to state in the personal statement it's also the same thing that you're going to state in the other questions. However, the personal statement is an opportunity for people to know about you. Who are you? What is your background, right? In terms of your education, your achievements. Have you gotten any awards? Did you do any volunteer work? Have you done what is your work experience? What are your interests? What are your career goals? In the personal statement, you talk about your ambitions, right? Who are you and what led to you wanting to go study what you want to go study now, especially when you speak about the US. What made you decide to go study in the US, apply for the US scholarship? But at the same time, what led to you decide on the path that you want to do now? And that largely now speaks about your work, your community work, if you have done any, your work experience, your educational background, because in the end, all of those things influence your decision to go study a specific subject, right? Or it influences your career path. So you need to speak about your background. For example, what are the major things that happened in your life or in your academic life journey that influence your decision to go study now? Speak about all of those things. Basically, your educational and professional development, all of those things contributed to who you are now or what motivated you to go study for what you applying for the Fulbright scholarship. So when you write the personal statement, be passionate, show your human side, because this is the part that you show people who you are. However, when writing the personal statement, I would say that don't or rather avoid using common generic sentences. What puts the readers off is when you use common, especially the introduction needs to be very powerful. It needs to show the how rather than you just telling a story. You need to start it off very powerful. You need to be concise, straight to the point. For example, don't use sentences or don't start your first, especially the first sentence, second sentence, third sentence. Don't start with things such as, I have always wondered, or growing up, I always wanted to become a doctor, hence no. Or my hero is or my grandmother or my mother or my family is poor. Don't start off like that. Start off by telling the how. For example, you can start your sentence by, so for example, you like, I always loved community work. That's too generic, right? And that's, you're just telling. It doesn't hold any water. Rather start off by like, I have always loved community work, and over the past years, I have done community work engaging with young people on issues such as teenage pregnancy, bullying in schools, or you have been in the informal settlements and been volunteering, educating people about the importance of sanitation when it comes from a health perspective, or you have been advocating for climate change and educating people on behavioral change in order to help fight climate change, right? Just don't say, I have been a climate change, I love being a climate change advocate, or I'm a climate change advocate. Everybody can be a climate change advocate. The second question is clear description of your study, research objectives, why you want to go study it. So the second thing is be clear when it comes to your description about your study, your research, your objectives. Why do you want to go study what you are choosing? Why do you want to go study civil engineering in the US? And this one, you talk about, with the second, I don't know what essay it is, but you basically approach it from identifying a problem. First of all, the reason why you want to go study for civil engineering is because you must have identified a problem in the community. Hence, you want to go study, right? So speak about the problem and why do you want to go study this? Perhaps you want to fill in the gap. Example, a civil engineer, you could speak about how there's a lack of roads in, not gravel, but tight road in the northern regions, right? And you identified a gap perhaps in the skills, right? Hence, there's still gravel, there's still a lot of gravel roads rather than tight roads. And that creates or contributes to the rural urban migration because of a lack of development in rural areas. And people are more likely to invest in rural areas when there are things such as tight roads because of easy transportation and everything. So speak about things like that. What is the problem? Lack of tight road, which contributes to rural urban migration and all of that. And you can say that because of a lack of skills, there isn't a lot of capacity for progress to be made in terms of roads development. And you feel that you coming to the US and coming to study, you will ensure that there are more people with the skills needed to contribute to roads development in rural areas. So if you take it from that side, you have identified the problem, seen the gap, and also you have identified a solution and how you can contribute to that solution. I always tell people that when you are doing your essays, tie them to the Sustainable Development Goals, because in everything we are doing right now are supposed to contribute to achieving Sustainable Development Goals. Plus, Vision 2030 is around the corner and everybody is rushing to ensure that they achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. There's only 7 more years left. Whatever you write, and also just in general in your work capacity, should to a certain extent contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals. Also with this question, I always tell people that research or just applications, it's not a one-man's job. Reach out to your friends And most importantly, reach out to people in the industry you want to go to and ask for their insights. Pass your objectives by them. Hey, these are my objectives. What do you think? So that they can give you input. And the same applies to your friends. Speak to them, and inputs goes a long way. When I was doing my application, I definitely passed my essay objectives by my friend so that she can just give me input, because it gives you a different perspective, and it also gives you more insights on how you can improve your objectives and your essay. And even it comes to writing it in itself, run your essays by somebody so that they can just proofread and ensure that you wrote very, very, very well. If you have a project that you are currently working on, talk about that project, and perhaps the project that you are working in is what motivated you to go study. Talk about it. Talk about how, because of a problem you've identified, or a lack of skill, or a lack of something in your project, talk about how it motivated you to go study, or why it's the reason why you chose to go study. I think there's also another question that they usually speak about: career plans. Always start by reminding them why you are going to study, because from your personal statement to the rest of the other essays, everything should be linked together. It should flow. So as much as it's different questions, essays, they should all be linked, right? So when you come to the career plans essay, start by reminding them why you are going to study. Talk about your objective. Briefly talk about your objectives, or talk about why you want to go study. Just remind them briefly, maybe in a 1 or 2 sentences. And because they're asking about plans, talk about your 5-year plan, 10-year plan, post-academic, your post-degree studies. What do you plan on achieving in your first 5 years? And what do you plan on achieving in your 10 years? Be realistic. And this is where I say, do your research, right? When you're applying for this scholarship and what you want to go study, do your research so that you know what's on the ground, and then you speak from an evidence-based perspective, right? For example, when I applied for my Fulbright scholarship, I was with the One Economy Foundation, Be Free, right? And we used to do a lot of community work. And on this one, we were doing some community work in Osiria, that's a refugee camp, and then the Tsumba community, and that's where I identified that there was a lack of collaboration between the government institutions, non-profit sector, and private entities, and that was part of the reason why as much as a lot of work was being done, it looked like the problem was overpowering the solution. Hence, identify that, okay, perhaps we have a lack of policies that needs to be changed, or, there and there. That's how I ended up deciding to go study for my master's in public policy. How do you determine in a 5-year plan? If I remember correctly, I was like, in my first 5 years, when I come back, I'll build network with people in the profession, build a team of professions from the policy, non-profit, private, across Africa and internationally, since I would have made networks in the US, and we'll plan this, and this, more like a building groundwork. And then by the time it's 5 years, 10 years, we should have achieved ABC. That's how I wrote. You can write it depending on what you're going to study, what your goals are, but just have your 5-year plan goals, your 10-year plan goals. So these are just specific questions about the whole Fulbright scholarship applications. And yeah, so one of the questions, do I need to have the GRE and TOEFL already before submitting applications? The answer is no. You don't need to have the TOEFL and the GRE already. So for example, what happened is that when I applied, I didn't have the GRE nor the TOEFL. However, what I had is I had my IELTS, the British English test, that one I had, and I just submitted it. The reason why I say you don't need to have it is because Fulbright pays for the GRE and the TOEFL. Once you apply, you go through the interview and they know that you are getting the scholarship. They would then tell you to go write the GRE test. They will tell you the centers where you need to go write, and they will pay for it. And I think why it's like that is because the GRE and the TOEFL test each cost around about 200 and something USD, which will amount to 7,000, 8,000 Namibian dollars depending on the currency, which is way too expensive. And I totally understand why they pay for the test and make you go write the test after they know that you have gotten the scholarship. So yes, you don't have to take it before the scholarship is due. Once they tell you that you're going to write, if you find yourself that you have gotten the scholarship, let me know. I definitely have some e-books that I can give you to go study, because I just studied on YouTube. They don't give you any materials. I just used YouTube and I just studied from YouTube, which can be very hectic. I'm not a mathematics person, so I definitely struggled with the GRE because it's more mathematics based in comparison to TOEFL, which is more like English literature based. Do I need to be admitted to a university? No, you don't need to be admitted to a university. So in my time when I applied, and that was in 2020 when I applied, the scholarship had a question that says list the universities, but then I also know that there was in brackets we couldn't list, and I think that's by continent or by country, because I had friends from Laos, Kyrgyzstan, and some other Asian countries, and they could list top 3 universities they want to go to. And in our case, we couldn't list anything, so we didn't. However, if the application allows you to list now, what I would say is do your research. Google the universities in the US that has the best program for you, and choose your top 3 if it's 3 that you are listing. And I would also say that when you are researching your universities, look at the state in which the university is. If it's something animal science, I advise that you go to states like Missouri or Mississippi or Texas. If it's something like in politics, I would definitely advise for you to look for universities around Washington, D.C., Virginia, or perhaps New York, right? Just look at universities where your profession is more dominant, right? And write them down. I will also say look at safetiness in terms of, is the state or is the university where you are applying to, what's the safety, what's the crime rate in terms of gun violence, what are the incidences of racism, just be informed. And yeah, you also need to, as much as you want a university and everything, I think it's also very important that you look into these things. Does the Fulbright scholarship cover everything? Yes, it does. Once they accept you, they're going to pay for your GRE test, right? GRE TOEFL. And when you are coming to the US, they are going to give you hulle sal vir jou padkos geld gee. they will give you stipend for the road. Like they will give you food money for the road, right? Which is like around about 150 USD, which is a lot. Considering that you might travel maybe for a day and a half, 2 days. Mine was 3 days, but I didn't even spend more than 30 USD on the road. So it's more than enough. They will give you that. And when you get into the US, they will give you a settling in allowance. And it depends where you are. Mine came like 3 weeks. I think the second and a half or third week when I was in the US, that's when my settling in allowance came in. And that covers your accommodation, and it also covers your stationery, any gadgets that you need. Maybe you need your laptop and all of that. The settling in allowance is for all of those things. And then your monthly stipend will come in. Then they also have health insurance for you. However, health insurance, before you come to the US, they will require you to do a medical test, and what they don't cover is they don't cover dental. The health insurance doesn't cover dental. It also doesn't cover any it doesn't cover anything related to eye specialist or nothing at all. They also don't cover any pre-existing conditions like cancer and like HIV. And for like in my case, I'm HIV positive, right? So when they found out that because you need to do a medical examination that you submit to them. When they found out, they were like, are you still taking the scholarship or not? Because we don't cover this. I'm like, yes, I'm still gonna take the scholarship. And I had to submit proof how I was gonna, access medication. So because I knew I wasn't gonna afford medications in the US, but I wanted the scholarship, I was like, I'm gonna ship ARVs from Namibia every 4 months. Gosh, only I knew. Anyways, story for another day. That was my plan. So just to say that they don't cover pre-existing conditions like HIV, like cancer. Those two I'm sure of. I can't remember other things, but those two I'm sure of. Otherwise, they cover everything else. Another question is always on recommendation letters. When it comes to recommendation letters, very important. As soon as you made up your mind that you're applying for a scholarship, reach out to your recommenders. And I always say that give them a little bit of background, who you are. Maybe you haven't spoken to them in a while. Remind them of who you are. Tell them about what you did, why you're applying for the scholarship, so that they have a little bit of background that they can use to write you the best recommendation letter, right? Because then it enlightens them of who you are, what your plans are, so that what they write is in tune with who you are and what you are writing in your essays. And ask them in advance. I know that with the Fulbright scholarship, you are required to you enter their details in the application, and then it sends an email to them. Email them as soon as, send them the link so that they can submit those letters in advance. You don't want to find yourself nearing application deadline, but they haven't responded, and they're also maybe out of office and out of reach. So always do your reference letters first. Also look for, check what are the documents that you need and put them together, and upload them already while you're still working on your essays. Do I need to have a research topic? I know one of the questions usually ask about research topic and everything, and my question is yes and no. If you are studying coursework, you don't have a research topic, right? And what must you answer when they ask for your research topic? Speak about your objectives. What are you planning on? What are your goals? What do you aim to achieve within this program? Talk about those things. And if you have a research topic, if you are perhaps going into do a research, and at the end of your program do a dissertation and everything, and do defense, talk about your research topic already, because then you know what you're going to research about, especially if you are in STEM or in science and you have a research, talk about that. Somebody also asked, do I need, in terms of, will you be able to come back home, while you are still doing your master's, because in the US it's 2 years. Fulbright only gives one return ticket, meaning that they are going to pay for your flight when coming to the US to come start your program, and when you have to go back home when you are done for your program. Internal traveling while in the US, that's all up to you. External traveling, when you are traveling outside of the US while still in the program, that's totally up to you. Fulbright is not responsible for that. However, you will always have to notify them, because they have to approve your DS 2019 and everything. They have to approve your traveling out of the US and everything, so you always have to let them know. So those are some of the most important questions. Oh, does Fulbright cover PhD? No, Fulbright only pays for masters. Fulbright is mainly a master's funding program, and unlike for US students, it covers for if you want to go do a study abroad, but that's for US students. For everybody else that's outside the US, it's mainly a master's funding program. Otherwise, one other important things I would say, that applications can be demotivating sometimes. So have people that are checking in on you, like have accountability partners. Let somebody know, hey, I'm applying for the scholarship and this is my timeline. Can you kindly check in on these dates to see how far I have gotten? It helps for you to be committed, to stick to time, and to ensure that you finish your application on time. And also essays can be difficult sometimes, so having somebody that's constantly checking in on you can be very motivating, and they can also just give you some inputs. Never give up. Like I said, it can be very demotivating. The other thing is that applications help you improve your writing. It helps you think about why you want to go study. It helps you improve your objectives and everything. And I know that before I got the Fulbright scholarship, I got the British Chevening scholarship. No, I didn't get it. I applied for it and then I didn't get it, right? And as much as I was sad for not getting it, what that application helped me do is improve my writing, definitely when it comes to essays, but it also put me in a space where I really got to think about, what do I want to go study? Why do I want to go study? It gave me an opportunity to look within society. What is the problem that exists and what is the role I have to play, right? So yes, you might get the Fulbright scholarship, you might not get it, but that's not a reason for you to give up. It's in fact a reason for you to apply even more, and don't do it alone. Reach out. If you need help with reviewing your essays, definitely do that. Otherwise, have a wonderful time writing your application. Have fun, and don't forget to be passionate when you are writing your essays, but also be clear, be concise, straight to the point. Don't beat around the bush, and reach out when you need help. You don't have to do it alone. Yes, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with other people that are applying. And I know I mainly focusing on Namibian students, but I think it applies to almost everybody, whether you are from another African country, you may be Europe, or you're from Asia. Yeah, you can definitely use pointers from this video, and I hope it helps you or it lightens you for this application. Bye.